time now. So let's play hockey.
Welcome back to Let's Play Hockey. Say it with me. Let's play hockey. Your one-stop shop for all things hockey in the state of hockey. I'm back with Bryan Zollman, the Brian with a Y, Mr. Let's Play Hockey. The Expo's coming up. Are you still looking for people to exhibit?
Yeah, absolutely. Got some space left on the floor, so we're looking forward to having a good time.
How do they reach you? If somebody wants to show up and have all those teenage shoppers rolling through there looking to spend their money, how do they get a hold of you?
Just go to letsplayhockeyexpo.com, and there's a tab, Become a Vendor, and you can fill that out, and I'll get the email, and then I'll connect, and we can make some magic happen.
Pulltab Sports will be there as well, so come visit us. We're going to have some fun. We're also with Brian Bonin with an I. He wore a bubble in college. Hobey Baker, Bubble Baker Bonin. You going to do an NIL shirt that's Bonin Bubble Baker? That would be so cool. Just your head. Raise some money for that association. Have you done a NIL t-shirt yet?
I have not.
Okay,
I'm looking for an agent.
I'm your agent. So,
Boom.
So we got two guys that know about hockey, and then you have me stirring the drink. We're running off the same whiteboard. These maybe an hour, maybe 45. Try to give you some stuff you like listening to when you're walking around or driving in your car. We each have topics we would like to do. Why don't we start with, it's that time of year, boys. Why don't we talk sections? You guys have your hand on the wheel way more than I do on the high school side. So what are we seeing in sections? What are your predictions? And I understand you have some format changes that you're intrigued by, which we can get into. But let's just start with like the lay of the land. Bonin, you said there's 5 heavyweights out there, 5 big teams with Hemi engines. Who are those teams, and who do you see as the big 5, and who are the other ones that maybe could surprise some people?
Well, I think each year you have some heavyweights. This year, I'm seeing 5 heavyweights. There's always going to be some naysayers to our comments here, and so it's really the second tier of teams is not far behind. And this year, I do feel, I think as we mentioned last time around here, potential upsets. But right now, Tonka, Edina are heavyweights, and right behind them are Wayzata, Chanhassen, and Benilde. In my mind, I've seen all 5 of those teams, and why they make that heavyweight level this year is depth and strength, veteran lineups, those things that you need in a semi, and then a section final, and then a Thursday, Friday, Saturday at the X. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about trying to win a game or 2 games, or maybe slip in as a section final underdog. Who are the heavyweights? Like, if you played these guys 10 times, how many times are you going to win?
Okay, so couple questions, and Zollman, jump in whenever you want, but the Galacticos, the Minnetonka super team, they've still not lost, right? They were losing 2-0 to Wayzata. As I understand it, they came back and won that game as well. They've got some ties, or at least a tie. You don't see them, though, as they're not an anomaly. They're not in their own class. It was hotly contested, the Jefferson teams from the 90s against the Galacticos from Tonka. You see them in the same tier with Edina?
I do, just because of the way and the style of play of an Edina, a Wayzata, a Benilde. These teams have been around. The coaching staffs have been around. Chanhassen seems to have found a way in there these last 2 years. Maybe they should be on the outside looking in, but their record, I think, points otherwise. 2 years in a row, there's some experience there, and just because they've pushed Tonka to the brink last year and this year, they've got them really nervous. And up next in this list will probably be Shakopee, so that's going to be quite a section this year.
Is that the same big 5 you have, Zollman? And when you look at it, or do you got anybody else in the mix?
That's pretty much it. And if you look at it, 2 of those out of the big 5, 3 of those teams are going to be sitting home during the state tournament because they're all, Section 2A and Section 6A. Minnetonka, the Wayzata game, I'd put those three teams in the same tier. I haven't seen a lot of Chanhassen. You've seen them play more than I have. Obviously, they're very skilled. And you talk about the coaching aspect of it. It's really hard nowadays for maybe a more talented team to win on just talent because the coaching is so good. It's almost like an NHL style, coaching where you can do certain things to kind of hold some teams at bay, that just have that, just the unbelievable talent like a Minnetonka. I was really impressed with Edina, Wayzata. You just talk about rolling 3 lines and 6D, or at least 4D. And then Benilde, we just did a story on Benilde and what they've been able to do. Ken Pauley, great coach there as well. And they kind of built from the back end to the front end. They don't have, I think their top scorer has 25 points. But he told me they roll 6D. He said, we don't have to gas our D in the third period. We can roll 6 with confidence, and that's huge. I mean, to be able to do that is huge, and that's really what often separates the top tier maybe from the next tier is that depth with that third line, that third set of D, when you don't have to shorten your bench. That third period, that plays a huge role in winning hockey games.
So a couple questions. Is the section tournament better than the state tournament? So I've heard that from hockey people lately, like if you really want to treat, go to Section 2, Section 6, and just get your popcorn, get your nachos, crack your knuckles, and just from a hockey standpoint, not a spectacle standpoint. I mean, if you're talking the top teams in the state, is it almost, as a hockey fan, just go watch sections?
I think section hockey is better than state hockey because it depends on the section. Okay, Section 2, Section 4, Section 6 this year. Those, it's a smaller venue, so you got people hanging off the rafters.
Madness.
And it's just it's crazy. Section hockey, it's getting there is a huge deal. So I would say section hockey from a fan standpoint might be more fun to watch, like the experience of it, because it's such a huge accomplishment to get to state. There's only maybe 4 or 5 programs once they get to state that expect to win it. A lot of people get to state. I mean, it's big. It's like getting a talking part in a Scorsese movie. It's a huge deal. Now, if you win state, I mean, that's like being the star in a Scorsese movie.
Walk together forever. So we're gonna have to let's go make a pact to go watch some section hockey this year for sure. Now I want to ask you. Okay, you're in Vegas. You're not going to get good odds on any of those teams you said. Wayzata, Tonka's going to be whatever it is minus 200. Give me some bets like my sleepers. Hey, don't be surprised if this little team 2-steps their way over to St. Paul and does some damage. Who's on your private sheet as high school teams that could make a dent?
Yeah, that's what gets it super exciting this year is I would say there's 2 really, really strong sections. We just mentioned them with, Tonka, Chanhassen, and then you got Edina, Wayzata, and Benilde. Most years, at least in the past 5-10 that I can remember, we've had some really, really strong teams in 3-4 other sections, sometimes all 8. And this year, I think it's just down a bit. Not that you want to sleep on any of these teams, but it's a big difference when you got to get to the state tournament, and there's always a Maple Grove you got to run through. Lakeville has really produced some really good teams. Moorhead has been excellent. They're just down a bit this year. Young. Again, they don't have the veterans, the big, strong players. Doesn't mean I don't want to, bet on those guys. It's just a bit of a different year. Andover's down a bit. So I think we see some sleepers coming out of these other sections. My biggest sleeper yet, and I'm not seeing them play, Rosemount.
The Irish.
And, that's what makes it fun about these sections, too, is you talk about that the road to state is you do have an opportunity to go and see some of these rivalries that are actually being created as we speak, during the season. Yeah, we want to get to the state tournament. Yeah, we'd like to win the state tournament. Man, we can't wait to play so-and-so in the sections.
Absolutely.
We haven't gotten there yet. We keep losing to the same teams. So some of these teams are going to smell blood, At the same time, you have some veteran teams that know how to win, and that's hard to beat. So it also will make these sections really fun this year, and some of the boys are going to be squeezing their sticks a little tight.
What about you, Zollman? Who do you got as kind of a, going to pay a little better ticket if they did some damage?
I think Shakopee is a team, they're not totally off the radar. Very skilled. They got good goaltending. They could be a surprise team in Section 2A, AA. I think Eden Prairie is a team that could maybe do some damage. And then Centennial's been playing very well. They kind of got off to a slow start. Grand Rapids got off to a slow start, and they've been playing as well as anybody. So I would say those 4 teams have kind of been off the radar, but don't be surprised if they're down in St. Paul.
When I was up in Rapids doing this Minnesota hockey piece, which will come out next week, they said they always start slow. They said they don't have enough ice. It gets cold. It's almost like the old North Dakota teams. They are peaking at the right time, so don't sleep on the Rangers.
Well, one point, too, is it's not always the best team. It's who's playing the best at the right time. And that's why section hockey is so great. It's so fun to watch because anything can happen.
You guys kind of talked about it. So when I went to that state championship game last year, Edina Tonka, part of the reason I think I love high school hockey is there's so many mistakes, and there's a disparity typically in skill level. Somebody will have their head down and get blown up, or you can come back when you're down 2. That was not the case when I watched Edina Minnetonka. I might as well have been watching Nashville, Minnesota Wild, Central Division game. Neither of them can give up a point. The structure, the systems, it was almost boring. It was great, but it was it wasn't Dave Spihar, running around, Carl Gehring standing on his head. It looked like an NHL game. Is that the new way? If you're in this big tier, this heavyweight tier, is the coaching that good that you might as well be playing in the American League?
It might be getting close. I love calling it the Riverboat Gamblers. You get those D and you just send them if they can go. That's the style of hockey that I like, always have liked. You can always pull guys back if needed in the end. I would probably describe Tonka a little bit that way. Edina can play that way as well. Funny you bring up Benilde saying we're trying to build this from the back out. We need 6D that can go to give our top end guys a rest if needed, if there's a big penalty kill, if there's a big 5-on-5 shift against a top line where I need somebody to ruffle some feathers. Right now, can Tonka play both ways? And last year, again, I was surprised Edina held it that close because you would just assume this offense is going to take over. And this year already with the 2 ties, Tonka has shown that they can't necessarily just score you out of the building or defense you out of the building. They had a 1-1 tie with Edina, and then they tied Wayzata. And then they came back and won in overtime. So people are smelling blood in the water. I think that's the beauty of this is that the Shakopees, the Eden Prairies, they got nothing to lose. Even a Benilde, who's going to sit right behind Wayzata and Edina and just kind of wait for hey, I love being the underdog here. We're gonna make these games tight.
I think you make a good point with Minnetonka in that watching them, it's like, okay, when are they going to take over? When are they going to? And against a lesser team, yeah, they've done it. I think they beat St. Michael Albertville, 18-0. But against the Edinas and the Wayzatas, if they're going to be that next year team, me watch them, it's like, okay, when is that top line going to just say, all right, let's go, we're winning this game? And I just haven't seen that. And it's not a knock on them. It's more a credit to the Edinas, Wayzatas, how they defend and how they just make it difficult, how well they're coached. There's just some really good teams out there. So I don't think we can really, certainly not compare Tonka to the Jefferson of the 90s. If they win back-to-back, then maybe, but I haven't seen that separation from Wayzata and Edina quite yet.
Well, the promo clip we used was cut in such a way that everyone thinks we already did compare them, so we can live with that. But the thing I wonder about the Galacticos in Minnetonka is if They do remind me of the Russian team in 1980. Like, I don't even know if they'll know to pull their goalie at the end of the game. You know, they just are all gas, no brake. That gets dicey when you get into that second season. But, I mean, they got all the pressure on the world, so if they pull it off, you know, you really do. In this era, you really got to tip your cap to them if they do it, if they repeat. You guys had some thoughts on doing sections differently. I think one of the things we're struggling with is the rich are getting richer and the poor are going away. Looking at tiering in sections and potentially a 3-tier state tournament.
I think I'm of the same ilk where I think it's probably needed. Is it something? It's almost like scary room to walk into, you know, just because there's so much tradition with, and we thought that back in '92. It's like, wow, we're really messing with tradition here by going 2-tier, but it worked out, right? I mean, at the time we were kids playing. We had a different outlook, and I think I mentioned the last pod. Now we're parents with kids. It's like, boy, it'd be nice for, you know, more kids to have an opportunity. And if that's your foundation of high school hockey, is to have more kids be involved, have opportunity, then I think it makes sense. I think there's a way to do it without losing at the top, without losing anything from the A, right now the AA and the A state tournament. But it's just the separation has become hard to ignore. And I think, you know, these 18, even at the state tournament, you know, especially in Class A, when you get a Hermantown going against, you know, a Southern team that, you know, and it's 9-0 midway through the second period, that's not good. You know, that's not good hockey.
We need to do something, but it feels so. It's like changing the court at the Boston Garden, right? Like I can feel the angst you have, but it's a real issue. It's an issue in youth too. All these tournaments have the same problem. You go up to Fargo for the Squirt Invitational, you're going to beat 3 teams 14-0, and then hopefully play 1 or 2 good games. So go ahead with your 3 things.
Yeah, it's a lot of difficulty in this. We got to start talking about it, thinking about it, and I think a decision has to be made sooner than later, for multiple reasons. But I'm seeing all sorts of blowouts all over the place. It's happening at the youth levels. They've tried. I mean, they went from, you know, A's to AA, which pushed, and B1, B2, and we've done a lot of things to allow participation. Not necessarily about medals. So, number 1, get rid of all the consolation games at the state tournament. Done. We don't need those games. They're nonsense. You lose game 1, you don't want to play anyways. I'm not even sure we need the 3rd place game. Number 2.
What I like about that is it's sort of, hey, anybody that says we're watering it down or we've gotten soft, well, guess what? We're playing 3 tiers, but the only thing that matters is the real game. So keep going.
Yeah, let's get her going.
Got some beef jerky back in the room.
Yeah. Number 2. We haven't even talked about this yet. Minnetonka. They don't have their best 3 players.
Because Snuggerud's and
Hendrickson.
I don't even know who. Oh yeah,
Hendrickson.
Back at Hendrickson's in Sioux Falls.
Whipple at the development team.
Okay.
Drew Stewart was over at Benilde, left early. Those 3 boys moving on has opened up 3 spots. So when you're talking about participation and we talk about even combining teams, you're just taking spots from kids who've played hockey all the way up and want an opportunity. The Class A has been completely hijacked. The idea, you know, way back 1992, whenever that idea started, was to separate the really, really good teams from the teams who had challenge. They didn't have a youth association. It's been completely hijacked. You can get rid of that too. If you're up and down and that's your complaint, hey, sometimes we're good, sometimes we're bad. Well, sometimes you'll play in the big boy tourney and sometimes you'll not play in the big boy tourney. What's wrong with that? We'll let this thing play out as it is. That will still allow for really competitive games. And the kids at their levels, I really have seen this at youth hockey, once you're on that team, whether it's a B2, an A, or a AA, you want to win. You are competing. You're loving the game because you know you're playing against somebody who's much like you instead of, you know, we had no chance. Why are we even showing up?
Right.
That's just not good for us. And last but not least, I'll leave it at this. We got Woodbury and Cottage Grove, Park Cottage Grove over there, and Eastridge now. We got Eastview. after we had Apple Valley, Burnsville, that whole area. Lakeville's got 2 teams. So some areas are splitting teams and some aren't. So if Tonka, Edina, Wayzata, Osseo, Maple Grove, I don't know who else is in this mix, aren't gonna split at high school and create another school, then we got all sorts of unfairness, let's call it. So you get to the sections that we just broke down, and we got like 5 of the best teams in one section. I mean, based on what? I mean, 3 years ago, Cretin was over with Benilde, Wayzata, Edina, and all of a sudden they're now over in section 2. I mean, what are we doing? Just throwing cards in the wind and seeing what flips over, an ace or a 2? I mean, what the heck is going on? So it's just time that we do this, and the hockey minds will have no issue with it. They won't. And I'd love to see the guys complaining between Team 5 and 6. Who gets to go to the 6.
Well, I think the reason none of these changes ever happen or they take so long is the state high school league has to treat everything equally. They can't have a hot spot for hockey. But I think football really helps you to be able to say, look at football. Look at the tiers, look at the 9-man to 7A or whatever the hell Eden Prairie is these days. But, I mean, you have the precedent to say, hey, we just want it to eat closer to what football's doing, potentially. Did you have any final comments on sections?
Well, I just think, it's not, well, everyone deserves a medal, but I think everyone deserves to have a chance to play for something. And right now, there's just a large group of schools that have really nothing to play for other than, the brotherhood in the locker room, and there's no chance, really. And so we're not, handing out medals. It would just be spreading out opportunity a little bit more. 92, that first year, I want to say Eveleth won it in Class A, or they call it Tier 2 or whatever. Lake of the Woods, I think finished second maybe. Lake of the Woods, they got a chance now to make the state tournament. I would say probably very, very, very small. With another tier, they're probably right there. Those kids work just as hard as a kid does at Edina or Minnetonka.
Well, just to put a button on this, so many, many moons ago in your paper, Herb Brooks reached out to me and we did an article called Time for Change, and he would call me. I was living in St. Paul in Como Park, and the phone would ring at like 6 in the morning. I'd dive out of bed, try to find my glasses, and John, Herb Brooks, let me dictate to you. Mr. Brooks, I gotta call you back. So his whole deal was Oak Street should be playing Elm Street as long as you can possibly make that happen. So you're stuck with the guys on your street. This is like the Outsiders. If you got a fat kid, put him in net. Figure it out, right? This is it until a certain point. Because the game does get to identification and selection at some point. At some point, somebody's really good. And we'll get into the top players next. But his point was broaden the base. He hated the development team. He hated the whole idea that millions of dollars were going to coddle, 40 players in the country. He said, I even said to him, I said, Mr. Brooks, if you want to look at this article and scan it just so you don't get sideways with USA Hockey before we put it out, you can look at it before we publish it. And he says, he said, why do you think I'm writing it? I don't care what anybody thinks. This is what I think. And that was Herb Brooks. I mean, he wanted to broaden the base because his point was there's so many late bloomers. You never know what you have. As many people playing hockey for as long as you can have them playing hockey. Let's Play Hockey Pod is sponsored by Custom One Homes. These are the folks that make your dream home a reality. And what they're doing right now is they got a Wild jersey signed by everybody on the team. We'll share this on socials. Bid on it. Half the money's going to Custom One charities supporting youth initiatives. The other half is going to the Hendrickson Foundation, near and dear to my heart, supporting special sled, military, blind, deaf, and hard of hearing hockey in the state of Minnesota. Check that out. The bidding's going to go for a couple weeks here in February. It's an awesome jersey. Just bid it up. Get a bid in there. Make it go higher. If you get stuck with it, it's going to be an awesome thing to have on your wall anyway. We're also sponsored by Cub. We're sitting here in the Cub Content Studio. As a matter of fact, Cub is your neighborhood grocer. They're on the Homer Hankies, they're on the Wild on 7th Pod, they're on PJ Flex headset. They're one of us, they're awesome, they deliver at Cub.com. Check out Cub. So we wanted to talk top players all time. I mean, if we didn't get into enough trouble with Minnetonka last time, we've got a ranking sheet, the 100 greatest Minnesota State high school players of all time. This was published by who, Mr. Zollman?
I think Vintage Minnesota Hockey and Star Tribune put this list together. I want to say, I don't even know when it was, several years ago. So it hasn't been updated.
Well, Kyle Rao's on here, so let's see how recent we are. The most recent player on here.
I want to say, was he 2013?
2011.
2011.
So that's probably, this might be 10 years old, so forgive us for missing the most recent. I'm going to hit the top 10. John Mayasich, the great number 8. Neil Broughton, Minnesota's own Youngblood. Phil Housley, straight from high school to the pros. Tim Sheehy, Henry Boucher, and that beautiful, beautiful headband. Mike Antonovich, Willard Eichel, the legend in the fedora. Mike Crowley, one of the sexiest things to ever happen to the new Mariucci, along with Ryan Kraft. Dave Spihar. This is the first one I don't know is one. John Machefs from Eveleth. Then you get Kyle
Matches.
and Aaron way down the list. We have Brian Bonin at 32. Retired, it says here. But, I mean, he did the best he could. So who do you have as the all-time best high school players? Who would be your Mount Rushmore of high school hockey?
Yeah, Johnny Mayasich has to be number one. And I think the top 4 here, probably top 5 are kind of locked in. Even if we look, most recently, because this is probably accounting not just high school careers, but maybe a little bit of what happened in college. I'm not sure if that's all taken into account and maybe not appropriate if we're really looking at top 100 high school players. You got to win a couple titles to typically get to the top, which is not actually what Broughton ended up doing. For all that Neil Broughton accomplished, they didn't win a state title.
He won one.
Neil did? Am I wrong on that?
There's this famous video of him. He must have won it because it says, "Boy, am I happy." Or was that at the U?
Well, I know he won a gold medal, national championship, and a Stanley Cup.
I think it's one of my favorite videos. I think he's know what he won, but you've seen this, right? We'll put it in the podcast for people. He's like, "Boy, am I happy." I think it's probably because he didn't win a state tournament, and he finally, this would be his diving goal in that U of M championship. For sure. So,
well, I would tell you, I'm going to tease you a little bit for calling me out on that, but in general, I find most people believe you won a state title.
I did.
Yeah, they were so good. That top line was so good.
So he did not win a state title.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Aaron Broughton. Oh my gosh! I mean, often forgotten how good his brother Aaron was.
And with Butsy Erickson.
Yes, just so good. So interesting because Mayasich has several titles. Some of these other fellows behind these guys, super talented. I guess ran into Mike Antonovich up in Grand Rapids 2 weeks ago. He's a little frustrated with the game too. Highly skilled little guy. You're like 5. He's probably 5'6". Sorry about that, Antone, but you're not taller than 5'6". But yeah, no one could pick him up either. Sometimes, and certainly in my day, those little guys were really hard to manage. A guy like a Dave Spihar, several other players I played against. Who are just so talented and sneaky because they're so small and crafty and able to, score goals, which is a lot of times what these ranking systems were based on is, offensive threat. Even a Mikey Crowley, who probably was plus 100,000 at Jefferson, he has all these points, and nowadays we'd say, oh, what's your plus minus too? Well, don't worry about Crowley's plus minus. It was probably, through the roof. Whereas nowadays we're getting so much more defensive. It's harder to find these gems of players in terms of what kind of game they have. I mean, you go to a Tonka Edina game and they play 1-1. That would have been unheard of in the day unless guys were hitting the post and missing the net. So it's interesting to think through kind of top players and where
Well,
we're at.
so it's interesting. So on this sheet, it does have the state title. So you're right. You got 4 state titles for Mayasich. It's this 4th column here. Nothing for Broughton. You're right. I apologize to you, Brian. Sheehy with 3 in a row, it looks like. Crowley had the 3 in a row with Jefferson. So that is interesting. You know, it kind of does make the case a little bit with Minnetonka right now. It is so much harder. I'm sorry. Apologies to the Jefferson teams of the 90s. I mean, I don't know. If Tonka repeats, to me, that's the same as winning it 3 times in a row in the 90s. It's just so hard right now.
And I'd say
Look
last
at this list, even the best players. You know, Kyle Rao got it done once, right? I mean, you don't find anybody from the modern era. Oshie won it twice in single A. Bianchi is on those Bloomington teams as well. But there's really it's all like the Eikelas and Mayasiches and people from 70 years ago, 50 years ago that were stringing them together.
Yeah, the feat now, I would say, is more difficult because offense can be thwarted by really good defense and good goalies, and that's what's going to take place this year in the sections in the state. And I would say Tonka last year had to win 5 really difficult games, and this year they're going to have to win 5 more difficult games than last year.
Yeah.
That is a tough feat when you have to, consistently and constantly come back to a game, knowing that you're supposed to be scoring goals and having fun, and you're supposed to win. And I can still, I think maybe what makes this fun and thinking about this is it was really nerve-wracking when you're the better team and you're supposed to score and be ahead. And say what you will, about, we're down 2-0, don't worry about it. Well, I'm worried about it. I'm really worried about it. And that will happen in the sections this year. A lot of teams. I'm not sure at what point, but we're going to have some really big upsets because it is really nerve-wracking. And I'm not sure to what extent back when we played, it was the same there. Jefferson thought they were just going to roll through everybody. They were quite confident. It's still an amazing feat. But today, you just throw a third line against those guys, and if you have some depth, and you just keep running them over, you've got a good chance to win.
Well, I think, too, coaching with an emphasis on D-zone play has really changed quite a bit, too. You can trap in the neutral zone now. That kind of became popular in the NHL, and I think high school coaches are adopting that. It's very hard to get behind the D nowadays. And then getting shots on goal is just harder. You got to get it through 2-3 kids, to get it to the goalie. They collapse and all that traffic in front of the net. So it's a lot easier to defend. Where back maybe when we played Brian, it was like we're just going to skate and whoever, and we were trying to outskate them. Where now it's like, okay, well, let's outthink them a little bit here. And, we'll let them skate around the perimeter all day and fire shots from, outside the circles.
We've totally,
Tough to score from there.
and we've totally flipped on let the goalie see the shot. That was often the play. Let the goalie see it. And maybe you'd block it if you went out to the blue line.
Yeah, but nothing in,
Not anymore. Now it's everybody try to block it. You got 6 guys in front. So we really seen, we saw an 18-0. I think Tonka beat Buffalo the other night 4-0. Tonka beat Shakopee 4-3. There's some ability to be strategic, maybe a little bit too much with the iPad on the bench, as we see in the NHL, but that's kind of where we're going. And if you have the team, again, it does point to going to be really tough to beat these really good teams unless you have some depth. So another plug to the 40-team AAA.
How do you value, so if you were really doing the Mount Rushmore, how important is the state tournament itself, right? Because you could say, if I were looking at this list and I was an outsider, I would say Mayasich, of course, is on there. I would say Sheehy's on there. 3 state titles, International Falls. I think Crowley is on there. You put him on there from the Jefferson boys. And then Eikela I kind of got him covered with Mayasich. I think in a weird way, I might put like a Dave Spihar on there, like some person that captured the imagination and really gave the state tournament another decade of prominence, because it was magical, or whatever. Maybe Kyle Rouse, the modern version of that. But I mean, you could how valuable. If you're going into the Hall of Fame for hockey, the cups matter, right? Did you win a cup or not? I mean, state tournament titles. I mean, do you Neil Broughton's. He's Mr. Minnesota. No one's going to argue with that. But didn't win the tournament. Do you count that against him?
I don't know if you count it against him, but without a two-tier tournament, Johnny Pohl doesn't have a title, and that boy could play hockey. So a little bit of like, what are we really?
The eras make it hard.
They absolutely do. And so I think if you go back in here, titles do matter, especially when you start to see 2 and 3 in a row, because you still got to get through those same teams who know you're good and want to knock you down. So those Jefferson teams, the Burnsville teams, they won back to back. I don't know enough about Scott Bloom to say, like, is that too much on 2 titles, or numbers? What did you put up, and what did you mean to your team? Matters as well. Eric Rasmussen, I thought, was a fantastic high school player, and he played at St. Louis Park. But that's more difficult.
Let's transition out of this. So Lou Nanny's last year doing the tournament, and I'm really worried about this. So everybody takes for granted hockey in Minnesota, but I still think it's fragile. At any given time, you can wake up and we turn into Massachusetts, right? It can happen. Don't kid yourself. Lou is a huge, he's basically a pocket square in the sport code of the state tournament. He's a very important piece. This will be his last year doing the broadcast. Now, the person that follows him is in tough shape, almost no matter what, because you're filling Lou's shoes, right? So I almost, if I'm the high school league or Channel 45, I might overinvest. Fly Barry Melrose up here from his place in Florida. He's got the Parkinson's. He doesn't like to travel, but give us a couple years. Doc Emmerich. I don't know what we need to do, but we need to band-aid our way to the next person. There's some local talent, but like, what do you think? Who would be the right? Maybe it's Parrish, maybe it's a Ryan Carter. I don't know who that next person's going to be, but I think the transition is the part that scares me the most. Where if anybody has a reason to say it's not the same as it used to be, I just think you got to be defensive as hell if you're Minnesota hockey in the high school league. Who would you have replace Lou?
I like your transition idea. Butchergross, Darren Pang, and just someone that has some stories to tell. It's so much more about the stories. That's what Lou's so great with and about, and he has such a history behind the turn. He can pull things out of thin and air that people would remember. So as we look at that might take some time to put a list together. So I don't know if people are working on this or not. But yeah, how about a celebrity to come in and...
Butchergrass would be great.
He'd be fantastic. I'd be surprised if he wouldn't take that invite. Just because the guy loves hockey, he would know, hey, we need someone to fill in for Lou next year. Start working on it right now.
Well, and you forget he's an analyst. He's the color guy, right? So you don't need to know everything. You don't need to do the play-by-play on everything. You just need to do, like, college game day. You're going to get to talk to all the coaches before the tournament. They're going to tell you about their players. You treat it like a pro, and have somebody come in here. I just don't want to step back. I don't want anything that makes us feel weaker or vulnerable with that really amazing tradition of the tournament. You have any ideas on that?
Yeah, I think it will be a step back just because Lou's been such a legend. I don't really like the idea of bringing someone from outside of Minnesota in. I think we have plenty of capable people here that have a history, that played in the state tournament, knows what it feels like to be in the locker room and rush out onto the ice in front of 18,000 people who won that section hockey game and can talk about all the those experiences. I think that's important. Who that person is, I have no idea. I think he's out there.
Does Spihar do that hilarious Twitter X, or is that actually him?
No,
I don't believe it is.
If it
That's
was
not him.
I think he should do the tournament. I mean, if that's his personality. Okay, so keep it Minnesota. That's interesting. And well, then you do probably have a Mark Parrish or someone that's in that Bally's world maybe comes over and does it. That's interesting. But I think it's a big deal. Tip of the hat to Lou this year. I hope he enjoys it. He gets to see another Edina title on his way out.
Well, let's just call it.
We do want someone with a name, I think, and with some history. I don't know if we need to give Lou another title, but
We'll see what happens.
I would.
on the team, or
He probably does.
I mean-
I think they're pretty well populated over there.
I'd like for Buccigross and some of those East Coast guys to come and experience the state high school tournament. I think they'd be blown away.
Yeah, Barry came in. He was wonderful. He did the hockey hair with us one year, and he was just a riot. I think somebody like that. I know Doc Emmerich did the tournament as well. At least the championship game, I believe he broadcast. But so I was up in Hockey Day. I went up to Warroad, and I'm just going to tell you a couple of things I heard that were they're so obvious, but it was amazing. So I interviewed everyone from a 90-year-old to probably squirt players, high school coach, boys, girls, and I would ask them, why. I was shocked how small that town is. So I'd never been to Warroad. The kids didn't play there, and I got up there. It was like, this is like Starbuck, Minnesota. It's like, I don't even know if there's a stoplight. There is, but 1,800 people total, and this storied hockey tradition, Roseau right down the road, right, 20 miles. So, some of it, but everybody I talked to, I would start, my first question was 1,800 people here. How can such a small town make such a big impact in hockey? And every one of them, these little kids, they would just go, we skate a lot. And I just found myself laughing, thinking, that makes sense. And they got that Olympic ring. It's famous, right? Come early, stay late, skate every day. They told me, if you're growing up in Warroad, not only is there an open invite to the rink, you can skate at 2 a.m. if you want. The maintenance shed might not be open, but you can skate. But the other thing they do, 2 other things. If you're a squirt, you can take all the Pee-wee practices. If you're a Pee-wee, you can skate with the Bantams. And I believe you can go down or up 1 level. So you can essentially double shift your practice time. And they told me they run a reverse pyramid. They said every other association, you skate the most when you're a Bantam. You're on the ice 7 days a week. They said our youngest players are on the ice 6-7 times a week. And actually, as they get older, it tapers down. So they play the most as a youth player, and then as they get older, they may play a little less because they do the multi-sport thing there as well. But, and they got this river that during COVID, they started shoveling from one house to another. So now it was 5 miles. I think it's about 2 miles now. You can skate on the river. It's right in front of us. If you want to be better at hockey, skate a lot. And they've created an environment where it isn't super structured. It isn't a kid crying in the car ride home because their dad watched practice. It's a lot like it used to be. It's almost like the 1970s. So I was just really impressed. I don't know if you have any reaction to how Warroad is doing it up there.
Well, I think what they're doing works, right? They're producing some pretty good hockey players and some good teams. I like that reverse pyramid idea. I think maybe some other associations could put that into work, and I think they'd see the benefits of that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Hockey and Hockeyland, the movie, focused more on Hermantown. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but it's just those small pockets up north. The Iron Range hockey, just the allure, the stories there, the lifestyle. Who doesn't love that?
Marvin Windows helps too. You need a patriarch. You need somebody that's like, hey, I'm really into hockey. You see it with Stan Hubbard out in New Mexico. Somebody that just sets up shop and is like, this is going to be a hockey place, and they have the means to do that. That helps too, because there's a lot of sheets up there. There is ice in Warroad. there's more rinks than there are restaurants, I think. But I was just really impressed by that. And I did want to get your take on Hockey Day Minnesota, though. So it's getting so big, right? So it started on Baudet, and I believe they skated on an actual lake. And as I recall, you could ice fish in the penalty box the first year of Hockey Day Minnesota. Now it's just this corporation. We saw it come through White Bear Lake last year, and you got the pressure, like, I got to do better than last year. Minneapolis didn't do so well 10 years ago or whatever it was, and it's just feeding on itself bigger and bigger and bigger. I almost wish we could step back with Hockey Day Minnesota and go almost, I know we can't play a game on a lake anymore because it sounds like that's just not approved with the high school league and everything else, but how do you kind of keep the magic of it? Because it's great. I watched it all. Every commercial was basically hockey scrapbooks, and but how do you think you can? Where does Hockey Day Minnesota go next, in your opinion? Like, how do you evolve that, or maybe take some of the commerce out of it?
Yeah, I wonder if, everybody seems to still be interested in hosting it. I'm not sure they know what they're up against.
It's a full-time job.
What they're signing up for. I wonder if more of that could go back to the community, again, to continue to grow the game. You just mentioned Warroad. You need a patriarch. You need ice sheets. You need ice time. I grew up playing outside all the time. You almost had to go inside to learn how to play the structured piece of hockey. That's how I grew up. And I think that's how you learn to love this game. So the more we can invest back into that, these outdoor rinks we got at St. Louis Park and Woodbury and Edina, I want to see more of those if possible. That's going to require dollars. So Hastings, I think that's the next host. Shakopee first.
Then Hastings, yep.
And one of them's military.
Hastings at the United Heroes League.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So if the effort,
more of the effort came back, I think that would continue to accelerate it. I don't know if you can change it a whole lot. We're trying to just play a couple outdoor games, aren't we? Highlighting these great cities of hockey in Minnesota, these great rivalries. So is there a way to just help that happen? Because I'd really be heartbroken if one of these cities just by chance doesn't raise the dollars it needs to raise along the way, and so everybody's stressed out about this event that's supposed to be something we're all celebrating together. I don't think this needs to be, for instance, White Bear against Warroad, against Shakopee, against Hastings. Someone might do well and someone might not, which then makes it more difficult in the future.
Well, I'm going to give you a food for thought, because it was amazing. And Warroad, someone needs to make a Super Checks bubble hockey with Warroad playing Roseau, and send that up there, please. But it was beautiful, like the way it looked. It was dark. You got a kid named Pilgrim, all these amazing, it was awesome. Besides no one wearing a headband and warm-ups for Boucher, which they should have. But there's a reason. So think of Hockey Day. Never been in Edina. I don't think it's been in Minnetonka. Hasn't been in Wayzata. And it fundamentally exposes the thing you're talking about, okay? So if Edina got Hockey Day Minnesota, they'd raise $7 million. They might have 2 more sheets. Because there's 10 Marvin windows that want to be involved, right? There's more than one Cambria, right? Minnetonka would be this. It would be Hockey Day. They would have apps, and they might create a restaurant just for the week. It would be over the top, and it wouldn't be a problem. They would go, hey, yeah, sure, we'll host Hockey Day, and they might raise $2 million for their association, right? So again, you get into this rich gets richer. So I think we've got to find a way to have the structure be such that the most players play the longest. Warroad did a hell of a job. But it was a community effort. There's not that many people up there. So when I was up there, it was like everybody had a set menu. I bet all those restaurants and bars met, and they're like, okay, we're all doing set menus. Okay, you got the chicken fingers over at Izzy's. We're not going to have chicken fingers. If somebody wants pizza, they're going to come here. It was 10,000 people came up there, right? And it's a big deal. And they didn't have the merch tents, right? They didn't have a company like the Minnesotan, even Unreal. They're not going to go 6 hours, set up, bring all that stuff, be up there, try to find a hotel at the Can-Am Inn or whatever. It was too hard. But that disparity, there's a reason they're sprinkling. It's almost like they give Hockey Day Minnesota, it's like food to help something survive, right? Like here's a meal that'll sustain you, for a while longer. But really, you do got to look structurally at the model, because let me tell you, if Minnetonka has Hockey Day in Minnesota, it's just, there'll be fireworks and not those Hill Murray fireworks. There'll be, who knows? They might buy 5 Zambonis just for the outdoor ice.
They could have a GoFundMe
For who wants to play us.
For real.
Starting bid, $100,000. Which high school team wants to play us? Edina would be first, and why is that? I know.
Taylor Swift would sing the.
Yes.
It's a different deal. So, I'm going to do a couple more sponsors. We got Summit Mortgage. This is a hockey guy, Sheldon Frank. It's not easy to buy a house. I went through the process with Sheldon, NMLS 213346 with Summit Mortgage, and I was starting a company, building a house all at the same time. He guided me through the process, talked me off the ledge with pre-approval and rates. He's a hockey guy, so there's just pucks, no balls to drop with Sheldon, and you can trust him. If you're looking to buy a house in Minnesota or Wisconsin, reach out to get pre-approved. Call Sheldon Frank, 612-232-1872. Summit Mortgage Corporation, NMLS 1041, is an equal housing opportunity lender. And just to keep it all on the house stuff, Yoakum Real Estate Group. If you want to buy a house, what's better than 2 5'2" blonde twin sisters? It's a two-headed monster in all the right ways. Sarah and Jody have been doing this. They're identical twins, and they can move an entire home of heavy furniture all by themselves. With this team doing your real estate heavy lifting, you'll understand the meaning of small but mighty. They'll guide you through the process. They're much more than smiling faces on a park bench or planting a for sale sign in your front yard. They got different backgrounds too. Sarah being a lawyer by trade, Jody's on the artsy and creative side. They got everything you need. So when it comes to your biggest asset, think twice and call the twins at Yoakum Real Estate. Visit yoakumrealestategroup.com for more info. All right, just to close, give me a status on the Galacticos. How are we feeling? I still think this is the best storyline in high school hockey right now, this Minnetonka team. The fact that I'm getting text when there's a close game in Minnetonka, like my daughter stopped playing high school hockey like 7 years ago. Son quit after Pee-wees, and I'm getting updates. The drama of the repeat, the undefeated skippers. Put you on the spot. Will they win the state tournament, both of you? Why or why not?
Well, everybody's hoping that they lose. I just sense that, which is funny because we always go back to the everybody hates Edina. Is this really going to be the year that people cheer for Edina to beat those guys? I got to go with they're not going to make it.
Not even make it to the tournament.
To the state tournament.
Oh, I like this. Here's our promo clip.
I love this team.
I like the coaching staff. I like the players. The challenge is squeezing your stick and getting a little nervous. It's very difficult to get out and play your game the way they like to play it. I love this team. So I don't think they're going to make it, but I love this team and I'd love to see them win it all. So I got to put that disclaimer on the backside of just how difficult I think it is to be good.
Your point is they're high school kids.
They are, and I've watched so many of these games.
The game just tipped, from one end to the other. The rink really does seem to move out there, and oftentimes, the more and more I watch, I believe I see the little things that are causing this, and I don't think the players see it, but how hard the game is, how lucky that player just got, how good you're playing, and it's still not going your way. That's a lot for a 15, 16, 17-year-old to manage. They look like college and pro players from either. These guys are way better.
Yeah, they passed the eye test, but
Yep.
at the same time, they're just kids. All right, you're on the spot. Zollman, Minnetonka Skippers.
Yeah, I think there's two camps. I think, there's a camp that they want to see greatness, right? They want to see a dynasty. They want to see him repeat. There's a lot of people, like Brian said, would like to see him get beat. But everybody is kind of looking. Everyone's watching, right?
You do know that you need to answer the question, Zollman.
I don't think they win the state tournament.
But they make it?
I think they make it. I do. Like I said, I haven't seen the separation in those games. I haven't seen them have the ability to really take over. And again, it's nothing against them. The talent is there, but like I said before, the best team doesn't always win. You got to be playing the best at the right time.
So they get to the tournament, they exhale, and somebody pinches them.
Yeah, I don't see them winning it. That's just kind of, if I had to bet, I would bet the field. I would bet the field.
Which is a compliment to Minnetonka, by the way. I'll just take every other high school team. And then, no, so I think that's fair. Let's, anything that we missed that you're desperate to say? Otherwise, follow us. Check out Let's Play Hockey. You see it in every skate shop in town. Check us out on the socials, Pulltab Sports as well. Give us a follow. Any final thoughts, or should we say goodbye?
Section hockey's coming up, best time of year.
We'll be there. Thanks for listening. This is the Let's Play Hockey Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things in the state of hockey.
It's time now. So let's play hockey.